Hello and welcome back to Josh Davidson Books, my author channel where I'm currently doing an author commentary / reread of my first novel, Werewolves Hide. It's part of my preparation for my ongoing work in writing book 2. If you enjoy the story so far or enjoy what you hear in this video today, please consider purchasing the book. It's only $4.99 on Amazon in its digital form. I've got a link in the description. So yeah, as I have been doing and as I will continue to do, I'm rereading the book to refresh my memory and remind myself of the story. And then I'm going to add, again, author commentary. So behind the scenes thoughts, character thoughts, what my intentions were, and things like that. So here we go. Chapter 7. I'll read this and then I'll explain something. The white-hot sun shines brightly in the middle of the blue sky on a clear Wyoming day. Its rays beam intensely through the large plexiglass windows that peer down into an endless mountain range. The long valley is sparsely speckled with blue-tinted trees that surround the glistening river running through it. That is easily the hardest paragraph I had to write in this entire book. I spent a few, literally hours on this sentence because in trying to make a movie as a book, and trying to control, your mind and your imagination, I want you to see things in a particular order. So I had this vision in my head of, seeing this valley and seeing these cliffs, and then the camera zooms back and comes through the plexiglass, and now we're inside a building that's air conditioned, and we have all of these rocks and geodes around because we're in a museum, we're in a rock exhibit. And so, yeah, trying to describe this scene was very, very challenging. Within the building housing the windows, there are a variety of rocks and geodes on display, locked behind glass cabinets. They're accompanied by various maps, diagrams, drawings, and descriptions, offering information and trivia about each one. The entirety of the Geology Museum's exhibits is blanketed by the sunshine, encompassing what? Encompassing everything. This constant exposure that has filmed over the documents has faded several of them behind the glass. I also thought, ending on the cliffhanger of only one way to find out, I just thought we immediately need to track down what's going on with these glowing white rocks. I didn't want to waste any more time. I wanted to keep things moving. So I created this concept of going to a local museum and kind of expanding the mythology of Blue Ridge in general with Blue Ridge Park and the park ranger. And it really all, so I do a lot of planning and a lot of pre-writing before I actually sit down to write anything. I will, try to watch the story in my head over and over and over for months and months on end and see what is sticking around. And then I'll take notes of the most important things or ideas that I have. And then only when I actually have a general idea, a general structure, a consensus of what the big bullet points are that in the story, that's when I'll sit down and write. And then when I write, I allow myself to deviate or follow what is natural or more interesting. And a lot of the ideas that ended up final in this book weren't even there when I planned. They came naturally through the writing process. But because I had a plan, I knew that I had a safety net and something to fall back on. And so this idea of the Blue Ridge Park and the Geology Museum, that just happened naturally through writing. I don't know if there was a museum in my plans. I just thought, oh, we need to go to a museum. Blue Ridge has a museum now, and but it's been a while since maybe Madison's never been there, yeah. So it really, this chapter and how things grew kind of organically for what the characters needed, what the plot needed, and what I wanted to read as an interested reader to get a new location and have a little bit of variety of where we're spending our time in the story. It all just kind of worked out pretty perfectly. A meager group of tourists walks about the museum as Madison and Beau stare down at the display in front of them. Beau is wearing his standard low-quality blue jeans, stained white t-shirt, and backward hat, and sunglasses. Madison is wearing dark tan khaki pants and a light blue collared shirt with buttons. Her dark blue jacket is draped over her left arm as she adjusts her purse on her right shoulder. She fights to hold it all while aggressively trying to shield the sunlight from her eyes in an attempt to read the display. "Should have worn sunglasses," Beau teases her. You should have told me I'd need them, Madison snaps back. She leans down to try and get a closer look while squinting, but she still can't really read anything. As she bends, the weight of her purse pulls the strap off her shoulder and almost drops it. She catches it at the last moment, but has to close her eyes since her hand no longer shields the sunlight. Madison exhales loudly in frustration as Bo finally realizes she's struggling. Oh, did you want some help? Before he can even finish, Madison shoves the purse into his chest and rips his sunglasses off his face. Bo instinctively reaches his other arm up to shield the light that is now blinding him instead. He curses quite a bit. He exclaims loudly. The silent tourists minding their own business suddenly stare at Bo. He smiles nervously and glances around at everyone while putting his index finger in front of his mouth. Shh. He shushes quietly, acknowledging to the room that he knows he is being too loud. After a brief murmur from the crowd, the tourists return focus to their respective exhibits. Toward the back of the lobby along the wall, a gray-haired African-American man sits on a bench alone. He's wearing a light tan cargo pants and a white t-shirt underneath a green cargo shirt. His drawstring sun hat is seated beside a large water bottle on the bench on top of a black binder. Faint music that has been playing in his headphones suddenly gets turned down and goes quiet. His dreary eyes stare from behind his glasses as he peeks over his notebook to see what the commotion is about. Madison and Bo continue arguing quietly with each other from a distance, but what they're saying can't be heard. They push her purse back and forth at each other and keep trying to wear the sunglasses while the other keeps taking them back. Amidst their exchanges, the purse drops on the floor and one of the white glowing rocks falls out. Madison quickly drops to the ground to stuff it back inside. She looks around to see if anyone saw it fall out and makes eye contact with the man on the bench. They stare at each other momentarily as both realize he saw what she dropped. Suddenly, Tommy, the Blue Ridge Park Ranger, bursts into the lobby through a set of gray double doors. Madison stands up and the people that were all separate start grouping together for a tour. She and Bo fall in line with the crowd while the man on the bench continues to watch them from where he sits. Madison speaks under her breath while tugging on the back of Bo's shirt. Back of the line, at the back. Bo's confused but does what he's told. He slows his pace with her so they're no longer in the middle of the group but instead are behind the rest of them. Once everyone exits through the gray doors to follow the park ranger, Madison and Bo follow as stragglers. Now alone in an empty and quieter lobby, the man on the bench stands up and gathers his belongings before placing his sun hat on his head. He calmly strolls to the display that Madison and Bo had been looking at, seeing some description of volcanic rock on the wooden sign behind the glass. He finishes his brief glance at the display, then lets himself out of the gray double doors to catch up with the tour. Outside the Geology Museum sometime later, the visitors are all walking behind Tommy on a nature trail as he enlightens them on the history of Blue Ridge Park. Tommy educates with passion and pride. I personally was really proud of this idea to have this tourist guide on Blue Ridge Park because it gave me an opportunity to fill in some backstory about the world and the history of the town. It gave me an opportunity to instantly characterize Tommy and kind of his, dorky, passionate, naive, kind of, wilderness Cub Scout attitude that he has towards Blue Ridge Park. And I just really like this idea of a tour guide because he's not just guiding, the people that are there. He's guiding the readers and getting them caught up in a fun and fast way without kind of, just being an info dump, at least in my opinion. He only has a few sentences here. Established in 1896 by the late great hunter and explorer Joseph Lee Briscoe, the town of Blue Ridge has been the home of some of America's most notable historical figures for over 125 years. The perfect combination of picturesque beauty and practicality, it is named for its uniquely shaded blue pine trees that mostly grow atop the northernmost cliffside of that canyon. He points out to the horizon, where a giant cliff covered in blue pine trees can be seen from several miles away as he continues. And of course, on the other side of that canyon, as you may already be aware, there rests the second most largest volcano in this United States of America. Originally just known as the Volcano, Joe Briscoe renamed it Sadie Volcani in 1902, just after the birth of his second daughter, so also named. A middle-aged couple at the front of the line raises their hand to ask a question. Tommy points at the couple. Yes, go ahead. The husband asks first. What made him want to name it after his daughter? The wife quickly follows up. Yeah, couldn't he have honored them with something more calm or beautiful, like the river or the waterfall? Tommy smiles as he's been asked this before. And again, you might think that these are just random questions that the tourists are asking. But I'm specifically trying to remind you of the geography, that there is water and there's a waterfall, because that might actually come up later in the story. Tommy smiles as he's been asked this before. Well, you're right. He was a family man and took every opportunity he could to name anything he found or claimed after his kin. There's probably not a star or stream or anything in between that ain't named after him or someone he loved. Some stories go that he had plumb run out of things after being in Blue Ridge for 6 years already, and it was all that was left. Another more personal and rare rumor, probably the truth, was that his daughter was born in silence, and in the first few months of her life barely made a sound, although she was otherwise perfectly normal and healthy. So that story goes that old Joe Briscoe figured his daughter Sadie to be a powder keg, destined to explode someday. The couple is suddenly scared and looks out at the horizon. Like the volcano? Is it destined to explode someday? The husband asked nervously. Tommy scoffs it off. Not in this lifetime, at least we hope. Ain't that right, Sterling? He looks past most of the group to the back behind Madison and Bo, where the man from the bench is taking notes. Sterling doesn't look up from his notepad, but responds stoically. To the question as to whether or not I am hoping this volcano erupts in my lifetime, in particular while I'm in the vicinity to receive its wrath, you're correct. I don't want that. The heads of the people all shift from looking toward Sterling back to Tommy's direction. Tommy widens his eyes in embarrassment and pivots. Sterling is a touring geologist, doing us a great service by visiting Blue Ridge every so often to make sure Sadie Volcani stays silent, and rest assured, I'll miss him when he finally has to leave town. A hint of sarcasm is suggested in his last statement. Madison whispers to Bo in anger. Can't believe you made me burn PTO for this. Bo responds defensively. I didn't make you do anything, Aunt Maddie. I told you I'd take care of it. You could just send me pictures or something. Madison's agitation continues. No, because something would have messed up and I'd be taking time off anyway. When is this tour over? So it occurred to me while I was coming up with, in my opinion, a really fun sequence of messing around with a heavy purse and heavy rocks in a geology museum that they could have just left the rocks at home. They know what it looks like. They know what it is. They don't need to bring it with. But Madison is working, has a job, and Bo is a screw-up. And so I put this dialogue in here both for characterization and to explain at the plot level why they wanted to bring it with. They wanted to make sure it was exactly right, and she wanted to make sure that Bo didn't screw it up. And I really wanted them to fight over a purse full of rocks. Let's see. Her last sentence was louder than she meant it to be. Whenever you want, ma'am. It's all voluntary here. Tommy interjects loudly to let Madison know that her thoughts are being shared with people she does not intend them to. She looks around and sees people waiting on her to stop talking. Madison tries to save face and not die of embarrassment. Oh, just that there's so much more I want to see. I love it all so much. She nervously chuckles and looks around. No one is responding. Tommy looks at the rest of the visitors and claps his hands together. Okay, everybody, break time. If you could just go ahead and follow this trail east down to the signpost that says rest area, I'll meet up with you shortly. There are restrooms and picnic tables and a pretty cool little natural wildlife exhibit to enjoy as well. Thanks, everyone. The rest of the tour proceeds as Tommy instructed while he stays behind with Madison, Bo, and Sterling. Tommy approaches so that they're all closer together to talk. I don't think I've ever seen you before. How far did you travel to be here? Tommy looks directly at Madison as he questions her. She's suddenly at a loss for words and keeps looking at his shoulders. Oh, me? Not far, not very far. I live here. Live here Blue Ridge or live here Wyoming? He's prying for specifics. Blue Ridge? Well, outside of town, but not in the park. I don't live here. That would be insane. She points to the ground, indicating the park. Like me? Tommy asks in a jokingly confused manner. Bo interjects because now he is feeling uncomfortable. Okay, Aunt Maddie, like you said, we got lots to see, so let's go. He tugs on her purse to get her to follow him when Tommy realizes it's abnormally full and weighing her down. You want any help with that? Looks heavy. Tommy reaches out for the purse. Madison immediately and defensively pulls her shoulder back away from him. No, not at all. It's fine. Thank you for offering. She turns to Bo. You're right. Let's go. As she turns around to leave, Sterling stands in her way, blocking the trail for her and Bo. Tommy quickly grabs the purse off her shoulder and opens it. Dude, what the F? Bo shouts at Tommy. That's mine. You can't just... Madison cuts herself short. Tommy opens the purse and finds the white glowing stones inside. Well, you see, folks, when someone tells me a suspicious tourist is lugging around a bag full of rocks leaving my geology museum, I have what's called probable cause. He tilts the open purse up to show Sterling the stones inside. Sterling shakes his head no. No, those aren't ours. They didn't come from the exhibit after all. He turns to Madison, now quite intrigued. Where did you get these? Bo starts being protective and dramatic. Don't tell him anything. We have rights. We want a lawyer. I'm going to be a dad. You can't take me away from my girls. Madison rolls her eyes. Bo, give it a rest. It's fine. Out on Highway J, east of town, by that big rock clump. Oh, right by where that blue truck had that accident the other day, Tommy exclaims as he is familiar with the location. Madison quietly responds. Yes, correct. The accident from a couple days ago. So clearly Madison is thinking about the accident from 20 years ago, but Tommy's association, because he was not, involved with Madison in that time, is what he saw on the news lately. Sterling opens his black binder, gets one of his cards, and hands it to Madison. Could I take one of those for analysis? Maybe just for a day or two. Here's my card with my contact information. I've got a pretty good idea of what this is, but I want to do some testing just to be sure. Tommy can vouch for me. I also love this idea that Sterling was like, kind of this suspicious potential antagonist, and the moment that he saw the white rocks, he was like immediately trying to get in with them and be really friendly with them. I can help you with that. Madison needs clarification. So you want to take my rocks that you thought I stole from you to confirm you're not wrong about what you already think they are? You summarized my request accurately. That's correct, Sterling responds in the affirmative. You just got to trust me, I guess. Tommy looks at Madison and she looks back. I don't have to trust anything. And you just ripped my purse off me without my consent. So how about trust if you ever do anything like that again? It'll be the last thing you ever do. Madison is setting her boundaries. Tommy shakes his head in acknowledgement and puts his hand out. Deal, I swear. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding, really. Hate that we met under these circumstances, but I'm glad we did it all. While Tommy gets mushy with Madison, Bo and Sterling look at each other as Bo rolls his eyes. Look, Aunt Maddie, Lacey serves this guy all the time at work. If he gives us any trouble or doesn't give us our stuff back, I'll find him and take care of it. Bo expresses his warning. Tommy's eyes light up as a distant memory returns to him. Aunt Maddie? As in Madison? She cautiously nods in the affirmative. That's right. Tommy vouches his hand to the sides of his face as he can't believe he forgot. Madison, oh my gosh, it's me, Tommy. Yeah, I read your badge. Madison doesn't realize what Tommy expects her to know. No, Tommy, from the community college. We used to wave to each other in the hall using our reflections in the trophy cabinet. Tommy turns around and waves away from her to demonstrate waving into a reflective surface for her to see. Madison's eyes stray from Tommy's head down to his backside, and she finally has the epiphany he's been trying to spark. Holy... So as I was writing it, I loved this idea of like Tommy is like smart when it comes to the woods, but he doesn't have like necessarily an overall intelligence because he's really never had to learn anything outside of his wildlife survival park world. And so this idea that, he thought they were just being cute, waving at each other in the mirror, but she was trying to get an excuse to look at his butt. I just thought that was like really fun, like interplay that, Madison gets that and the readers get that, but Tommy doesn't get that. So Junior, who did the cover art for the book, was also one of the test readers for the book. And one of his notes and his recommendations was like, he personally would buy into Tommy and Madison's romance a little easier if they had known each other before. If they were a little bit more comfortable with each other a little sooner because they had a past. So that was a late addition to make it that they had gone to school with each other years ago. And yeah, I agreed. I thought that was really good feedback. And so I went ahead and added that in, which is where I got the cute little idea from of like, hey, what if they had this little wave thing? And it was kind of a fun, I don't know how many more times it shows up in the book, but things happen in reflections, like, uh, you know, Bo sees Sam waving at him in the reflection of the car window, and we see Madison turn on her computer in the reflection of the TV screen, and then characters waving at each other in the reflection of a trophy case. I just thought there was a lot of kind of consistent imagery with like reflecting off of things that I could add to. Tommy turns back around and laughs as he's glad she remembered. Yeah, it took me a minute too, so don't feel bad. Man, it's been like 3 lifetimes since we last spoke. I don't think I've seen you since. He stops as he realizes he's bringing up Bo's car accident. Yeah, no, you're right. Long time. Madison slightly fakes a smile as she's torn between being polite and disappointed that the conversation went to this topic. Sterling reaches over to the purse while Tommy holds it and grabs one of the white glowing stones from inside. Bo looks at it intensely and takes a step back. Sterling places it in his cargo pockets and tilts his hat goodbye. Call me or text me so I have your number and I'll respond as soon as I'm done testing to give it back to you. Madison nods in agreement, so he turns around and leaves. Tommy is desperate to escape, ending this moment on an awkward note. Well, I gotta get back to the tour. It's the last one of the day and already running long. Bo and Madison respond in unison. We know. Because they were not having a good time. Anyway, don't be a stranger. Like he said, I'm down at the diner a lot. Coffee's on me. He hands her purse back to her. Right, sure. Madison responds quickly and then changes the subject. Speaking of that blue truck accident, I actually was wanting a little bit more information about it. Doesn't your uncle own the salvage yard? He used to, he's retired. He kept it in the family by selling it to my cousin, though. What do you want to know? Tommy is eager to help. Just curious, I guess. It's not every day a truck gets smashed in at the exact same spot where I lost my family. Madison doesn't want to get into specifics. Tommy squints his eyes and nods. You're right, that is quite the coincidence. Just group me in when you text Sterling and I'll get you my cousin's number. His direct line, not the lame-ass 800 number. Sure thing. Thanks. Madison appreciates the simple gesture. So the next chapter after this, which is the salvage yard chapter, was not in the first draft. And for the overarching plot and mystery, I felt something was missing, and I'll get into that when I actually get to that chapter. So I had to come back to chapter 7 and add this new dialogue. And adding this new dialogue and this backstory and explanation for the salvage yard created 2 brand new characters, his uncle and his cousin. Those characters didn't exist until I realized I needed more mystery and I needed to add dialogue to explain the salvage yard situation. So 2 characters that did not exist at all throughout the entirety of the writing process all the way through the first draft of the book. Madison says thanks. Don't thank me yet. I haven't done anything yet. Tommy smiles as he turns around to jog away. Madison can't help but stare as he runs back toward the tour. Hey, tonight when we're done, can we stop by the store and get a pacifier? Bo asks. And these pages, it is a real page turner, but sometimes pages don't want to be turned. Madison keeps staring at Tommy and responds in a slight daze. Sure, whatever. Wait, your kid isn't born yet. Yeah, it's for you, Bo snaps back. For what? 'Cause you're effing slobbering everywhere and it's embarrassing. Get a grip. We have more important stuff to worry about. Bo releases his pent-up frustration and stomps back toward the geology museum. Madison turns around shortly after and walks in the same direction. On her way back, she glances down at the edge of the trail and notices a footprint similar to the wolf print they found near the white stones. Stopping immediately, she crouches down to get a closer look. As Madison kneels, it becomes apparent there are even more of them, heading out into the woods where there are no trails. The tracks end and are eventually covered up by bushes and patches of grass. Deep in thought, she looks out into the now slightly more mysterious woods before standing back up to wipe the dirt off her pants. She continues back toward Bo and the museum. And that's the end of chapter 7. So, a lot of things happening there. We get introduced to Sterling. We get introduced to Tommy. We find out that there's Blue Ridge Park, the museum. There's that Sterling has a kind of a suspicious fascination with these glowing rocks as if he's seen them before. And then we get a little bit of a romance subplot with Tommy having a crush on Madison and Madison not really remembering him very much. And then kind of the ultimate tease is, werewolf footprints in the park. So now there's going to be kind of a plot reason for Madison to keep interacting with Tommy that eventually maybe will result in a personal reason as well. And so I was really, really, really happy with how that chapter came together after rereading it now. I like that. I like the dynamics that the characters had, and I like kind of how it's it's conflict, it's tension, but then it's maybe we're all on the same side, but maybe not quite all on the same side. And then there's that that looming dread of there's this werewolf stuff going on in the background. I knew that I had, for my werewolf story, I knew that I wanted it to be more of a tease of the first half of the story and not really kind of give everything right away. I essentially wanted the book to work, as the character drama and intrigue, and it just happened to have werewolves in it. Like, if you take the werewolves out, and Madison is this person who lost her family 20 years ago and has to reconnect with Bo because they have to solve some mystery together. Like, it just happens to be werewolves, but I still wanted it to mostly work on a story on its own, so that the wolves really kind of felt special and were additive to it, and that there was enough intrigue and weight in the mystery on its own that it didn't necessarily have to be wolves. So, I guess it's up to the readers if I was successful in that or not. So, yeah, that's going to do it for the Chapter 7 author commentary. If you enjoyed that chapter, or you're enjoying this story overall and you want to read ahead, please consider buying the book. It's only $4.99 for the digital copy. Links in the description of this video. If you want to follow along my author journey long term, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you do comment and talk about the chapter, please try to give a healthy spoiler warning, or don't spoil anything in the future. I want to preserve the experience for people that want to experience it themselves. So, as always, thank you for watching or listening, and I'll see you in the next video.